So, hey guys, today we're going to be talking about some rulings. So, today we're going to be talking about, I guess, Eldlich to an extent. Well, they'll probably be the main focus, I suppose. So, with the Eldlich cards, it really goes to show that, ruling moment. So, Eldlich showcases a few rulings that, kind of neat, I suppose. So, quite a few different ruling things, actually. So, the first effect on Eldlich, you can send this card and one spell trap from your hand to the graveyard, then target one card on the field, send it to the graveyard. So this effect happens pretty much solely in the hand, so the activation is in the hand here, and it sends for cost, specifically a spell trap from your hand to the graveyard. And then you must target one card on the field. So the cost right here, this has to be met, and this has to be sent to the graveyard as well. So if there was like a macro or fissure, this first effect already cannot activate. And then send it to the graveyard is effect, so it doesn't really matter for this part of the effect if macro was suddenly active midway through resolving this card. It would still resolve at specifically this point. So that would mean if maybe macro was flipped over after paying the cost for Eldlich, right? Then that would be all right. So ruling. And then this part, if this card is in your graveyard, you can send one spell trap you control to the graveyard, add this card to your hand, then you can special summon one zombie monster from your hand, and if you do, until the end of your opponent's turn, it gains 1000 attack defense and cannot be destroyed by card effects. So this effect technically is Eldlich's effect activating in the graveyard. So if you were to negate Eldlich on the field with something like an infinite impermanence or skill drain, it does nothing, because on field, Eldlich effectively has no effect to begin with. All of these effects do not happen on the field, and if you were to attempt to negate something that activates from a different location, weird things kind of happen, especially when there's like location changes involved. So this applies to something like a Primera, let's say, or actually Primera is not that good of an example. Let's go with Centurion Trudea. So if Trudea special summons itself from the back row and it changes its level to 4, that was not Trudea's monster effect as well. So if you were to activate a infinite impermanence on the Trudea, it would then be a level 8 monster still, and it would not adjust to level 4. So that's kind of how that works, I suppose. With Eldlich, it's like the same kind of thing, but conceptually it's also a little bit different, because Eldlich, I mean, it's activating from somewhere aside from the main monster zones, and then it's putting itself on the field, so the effect cannot be like negated in that way, I suppose. So if we look at a different boosting effect like access code says if this card is link summoned, you can target one link monster that was used as its link material. This card gains attack equal to that monster's link rating times 1000. And also, of course, access code, you cannot chain cards or effects in response to this card's effect activations if you are the opponent. So in this case, you would never be able to imperm access code on summon. So access code would always gain attack, and then you would be able to then in open game state afterwards negate the access code talker, and this actually undoes the attack gain from this effect here, and this activates specifically on field, I believe. That's kind of how this works. So this ends up being negated despite the effect and attack gain already having happened, which is just very confusing, I suppose. But simply put, Eldlich doesn't lose attack, access code does, and that's only a small part, I guess, of the rulings in Eldlich. But another one that's kind of, well, some people might have just never seen this happen, I suppose. But yeah, all of these traps work differently than some other traps in the game that you might currently see now. So we have Conquistador of the Golden Land. Special summon this card as a normal monster. This card is also still a trap. Then if you control Eldlich, the Golden Lord, you can destroy one face-up card on the field. During the end phase, you banish this card from your graveyard, set one Eldlich or spell trap directly from your deck. You can only use one Conquistador of the Golden Land effect turn, and only once that turn. So the thing that's really interesting about a card like Conquistador, and this applies to technically, I guess, Guardian and Hakero as well, is that they also count as traps. And they actually don't really have an effect. They're normal monsters, but, you know, effectively these guys work under skill drain still. But if we have, like, a Paleo card, what do we have with these guys? These guys are a bit freaky in a different way. So, all of them should say once per chain when a trap card is activated while this card is in your graveyard. Special summon this card as a normal monster. And then specifically it says here, different from the Eldlich cards, this card is not treated as a trap card. If summoned this way, this card is unaffected by monster effects, also banish it when it leaves the field. So a lot of interesting things with the Paleo. So first off, they're only unaffected if they're specifically summoned this way. So if you were to Book of Moon, a Paleo, and then flip it back face over, it is now once again affected by monster effects, which is strange. And also it says banish it when it leaves the field. So in this case, if we Book of Moon and then flip it back face up, it does not end up getting banished when it leaves the field. So a little more ruling stuff for you there. And then with Conquistador is treated as a trap. So if we, well, I think I kind of established already that if you just Book of Moon Paleozoic Olenoids, it's treated as like a monster, right? And it is not treated as a trap. So if you Book of Moon Paleozoic Olenoids, this will just simply be in your main monster zone, flip face down. But all right, this is treated as a trap. So Conquistador, if I were to use a Book of Moon effect on Conquistador, what ends up happening now? Well, it actually goes back to your back row, face down, because it's a trap, I guess. Which is kind of freaky if you ask me, but alright, whatever. If Conquistador in this case is counted as a trap, if we use any type of Book of Moon effect, so maybe we'll use something like this. So if we have perhaps Geo would be able to Book of Moon, Conquistador. And then Conquistador, because it was set this turn, would not be activatable immediately, but the next turn we would be able to special summon Conquistador, but again. And Geo the Gravity Ninja can just be flipped face up and then flip itself face down alongside Conk like every single turn, so that's like one way we could do this. If we want to loop it in a different way, I guess we could use Alistair the Invoker to make Ragin. And Ragin just has simply the effect of once per turn quick effect, you can target one face up monster on the field, change it to face down defense position. So we would just, you know, flip down, Conk, special summon Conk. Or Conk. Slip of the tongue there. So we can summon Conk, flip down Conk, rinse, repeat, and just keep on doing that. So that's another ruling thing with Eldlich. Great. And then there's also the fact that with the Eldlich cards, some of these things happen in chain, so it's pretty interesting where you can go like activate Sanguine and then Conk in a certain order. And I mean, it's like fine, I suppose, but what we can do is we can activate Conk as Chainlink 1 and then Chainlink 2 Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine. And if you see this, typically if you were to see just Conk as Chainlink 1 and no Eldlich on the field, then the next chain that your opponent will try to do is probably Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine. So this will resolve backwards like this. Special summons Eldlich from the deck or the graveyard, and then we have Conk effect, which states that you can destroy. Then if you control Eldlich, the Golden Lord, you can destroy one face-up card on the field. So this is all one effect. Special summon this, so that's required. Then after the special summon, if you control Eldlich, so you will control Eldlich because the chain resolves backwards. So that's kind of neat, and that kind of applies to all of these guys as well. So you can activate the effects of the Eldlich traps first and then summon Eldlich. It's actually not that beneficial to do so, in my opinion. But you do have the one upside on it, which is if your opponent were to chain. Well, there's an upside and downside. If your opponent were to chain Maxi to Conk, you'd be able to chain Scarlet Sanguine to summon Eldlich. But like the downside to this, of course, is that if we were to go Sanguine 1 and then Conk 2, this would never resolve. So if we want to resolve the pop effect on the current chain, we have to chain Conk 1 and then Elixir 2. If we want to do it just in open game state, we could go like Scarlet at any time and then activate Conk later in the turn, which is like a little bit confusing, I suppose, to an extent, but you know, that's how it works, I suppose. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything here in terms of the Eldlich cards, but yeah. You can flip these cards face down, face up, and also because they're technically monsters, there are some effects that might be able to do some goofy things with the traps that are now considered also monsters, technically. So, what if we had an effect that said return a monster to the hand? Then we would be able to return Conquistador to the hand, technically. As freaky as that is. But now, onto the rulings that I just simply don't really know. So, if we have let's go ahead and check actually what this can summon. Is this just normal traps? I don't think it is, right? Choose 2 spell traps from your deck and 1 monster. Ah, okay. So this would be really hard to do, but if I were to be able to activate magical hats, this allows me to put any spells or traps as monsters here. And this is freaky for a lot of different reasons. There are a lot of weird things about magical hats that you kind of have to kind of like really look for. But anyways, this special summons 2 spell traps from your deck and 1 monster in your main monster zone. Special summon them as normal monsters in face down defense position. Set the chosen monster if it is face up. Shuffle them on the field. The 2 cards chosen from your deck are destroyed at the end of the battle phase and cannot remain on the field except during this battle phase. So with magical hats, what if we were to, in theory, flip up the cards and then flip face down? Does magical hats actually remember that they're the monsters that were special summoned by magical hats? Not really sure. But with an effect like magical hats, they would technically consider the guys you summoned to be monsters in this case. But what if there was a way to specifically summon traps to your field as like traps and monsters at the same time? Then would we be able to kind of use something like a Book of Moon type effect to kind of return those cards to the background? This kind of archetype sounds freaky, and this might be the only way I think that flip effects really end up becoming really strong in the future. So I don't think an archetype like this exists as of currently, right? But just to showcase that we do have similar-ish effects right now. Like we have magical hats and we have like Honk, right? So if we were able to Book of Moon our trap cards that are also monsters, like Conquistador, I guess, right? Then they get set in the back row, and then we'd be able to utilize them again and again and again and keep building advantage. And we also have potentially interruption effects in the way of like a Book of Moon effect. So maybe we have something similar to a yugioh, where we flip one of our cards face down, one of our opponent's cards face down, or something like that. And flipping the card face down actually ends up returning it to the back row. And the grind game on this kind of deck would end up being absolutely bonkers, absolutely insane. But yeah, as of currently, I don't think we have anything that does this. But yeah, I mean, I guess we can, at least with Eldlich right now, you could play Book of no wait, not that one. What's it called? Sol and Luna, I think, right? So Sol and Luna target 1 monster you control and 1 monster your opponent controls. Apply the following effect on each monster depending on its battle position. Face up, change it to face down defense position. Face down, change it to face up defense position. So wait, is this you, Sol? If our guy is face up, it goes face down, then face down, change to face up. I don't think we would be able to use Sol and Luna actually, because we would want to book our guy and our opponent's guy actually. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. Yeah, alright. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and hopefully you learned something new. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.